Coach Richard. Good afternoon, Carlos Gamboa for RTN. For the coach, are you going to take into consideration the yellow cards that have been received by some of Colombia's players in order to take precautions looking at the quarterfinals? And something non-soccer related for Richard. What does Brazil mean to you, the influence that the country has had on your football and at a personal level? Good afternoon. I'm happy to be here, happy to be playing my first Copa America and for all the work that the whole team has been doing. I'm not taking it personally, but as Felix just said, it's a pleasure to be here and to take on Brazil in such a strong and important international tournament. I have a lot to thank Brazil for, because I went there when I was very young and they gave me a very warm welcome, but I don't take it personally. I feel that I need to continue doing what I've been doing so far, both myself and my teammates. Yeah, I have to answer myself. Good afternoon. Well, as for the yellow cards, of course, they need to be taken into consideration, particularly because we don't want a double yellow card, a second yellow card for something that is not justifiable if it may be avoided. But we need to be mature enough in order to be able to play under these conditions, because this is always the case in such an important tournament that there's these kind of regulations. But we're going to take that into consideration so that the players that have received the yellow card don't get a second one. At the back, the guy in the suit.
¿Qué tal, Néstor, profesor y Richard, Hugo Ramírez de Televisa Univisión de México?
Nestor, coach, and Richard, Hugo Ramírez from Televisa Univisión in Mexico. Same question to both of you. How does a team, a national team, to have such incredible dynamics under your coaching? Coach, you remain unbeaten after 22 matches. So how do you do to make sure that Colombia is a favorite, taking on a team like Brazil when it's not always a favorite, right? Thank you very much in advance. Good afternoon. I believe that we have, our streak is longer than that actually, but that does not make us a favorite only because we have a streak of 25 or 30 unbeaten matches, and the team has gotten as far as it has gotten because we are extremely united, because we work as a family and we are all going in the same direction, and that has been of great help inside and outside the pitch. Similarly to what Richard was saying, I feel that with Brazil, you're never a favorite because it's a team with a very strong track record, and we're just beginning to write a couple of pages in the history of football, in Colombia's history, which has been good at times, but we are hoping for more, or we are hoping to maintain our performance, which has been hard at times. But I believe that against Brazil, you're never a favorite, as I said. But we are going to be playing at our best level so that we're up to a challenge. Over there at the back.
Profe, saludo especial. Eduardo Luis para Winsports. Estamos en vivo hasta ahora.
Coach, special greetings. Eduardo Luis for Winsports. We're streaming live. Coach, how does this match resemble the last you played against the Brazilian national team? That I think in my opinion, it was the most important game that you've played since you've been the coach of the Colombian team. And in addition to that, for Brazil, this is a must-win match. So that poses a completely different
del
context.
partido de mañana. Muchas
And
gracias.
Richard, do you think that
Hola, buenas tardes.
your football, the football you play, has a Brazilian
Aparte de que
flair?
sienta yo
Good
que tengo mucho
afternoon.
fútbol de brasilero, es
Regardless
más
of whether I
como el
believe
estilo
that I've
fútbol sala,
learned a lot
porque ya como
of
muchos saben fui
Brazilian
criado
soccer, I believe that
en ese deporte.
I have a strong
Entonces se nos
futsal
hace como más
tradition
popular
because I
decir que
was
es de
raised
Brasil porque es
playing
donde
that
más se practica
sport.
ese deporte.
So
En
it is
Colombia
more
no es
popular to say that
tan
it's
peculiar.
Brazilian because that's
Entonces
where we
siento que por
practice
eso
that
dicen
sport more
que es un
often.
poco
It's not so popular in
brasilero,
Colombia,
pero la
and that
verdad
is
es
why
que
everyone
mi estilo
says
es más
that
de
the football
fútbol
I play
sala.
is a little bit Brazilian in
Sí, bueno,
nature,
tal vez
but
el
actually my
contexto
style
es
is a little bit more
distinto, ¿no?
futsal.
Pero creo
And
se
actually, the
asemejan
context is different,
eh, en la
but
gran
they are
cantidad de jugadores
similar
que van a repetir
in
y en la trascendencia
the
que le
large
damos
number of
nosotros competir
players that
contra los
were at
mejores
that match
equipos del
and are
mundo.
going to be in
En eso se
tomorrow's match,
asemejan otras cosas de
and
pronto
in the
hasta,
importance that we
hasta el
attach when
estilo
we need to
que
take on
proponían
one
técnicos
of the
anteriores,
world's
que Brasil,
best
etcétera. No, eso no va a
teams.
ser igual.
But the rest is very similar,
Micrófono, por favor.
even the style that the previous coach was proposing, and this one, they are
Gracias,
not
buenas
going
tardes.
to be the
Sebastián
same.
Vargas de Caracol Radio. Profe, han sancionado
Good
13
afternoon,
seleccionadores
Sebastián
por
Vargas from Caracol
tardarse en
Radio.
sacar las
30
selecciones al
coaches
segundo
have
tiempo.
been
¿Qué
sanctioned
opina de este clase de
for taking
sanciones y
too
usted
long
cómo maneja
before they came out for the second half. What
ese
do you
tema?
think of this type of sanction,
No,
and
la
how do
idea,
you
tenemos
manage it?
un tiempo, un time out dentro del vestuario
We
donde
have
estamos
some
continuamente
time out in the locker
pendientes, ¿no? Con
room.
los
We are
auxiliares de salir a tiempo, porque
continuously
sabemos
looking at our
esa sanción.
watches, me and every one of
No
my
lo manejamos los
assistants. We
directores
are very much
técnicos
aware of these
directamente,
sanctions.
pero somos los
But
sancionados
it's
en
not the
caso de que el
responsibility of the
equipo
head coach himself, but we are the
salga tarde.
ones that are sanctioned when the
Le puede
team
pasar a
is late
cualquiera, a
for the
cualquier
second half.
jugador que se olvide
It may
algo o
happen
que
to
tiene que
any
ir al
one of
baño o algo,
us
te puede
because any
provocar
soccer
esa
player
sanción.
that
Así que,
needs to
bueno,
use the restroom
esperemos
or
que no
forget
nos suceda
something may result
y
in
creo que es un
facing
poquito
such a
exagerada,
sanction.
pero
So
bueno,
I can only hope that it won't
eso
happen
lo
to me.
tendrán
I
que
think it's
decidir
a little bit of an
otra gente, nosotros
overreaction,
exactamente, ¿no?
but it's not for me to decide actually.
Buenas tardes, profesor. Richard, habla Carlos
Good
Villamil de eSports.
afternoon,
Richard, hubo una
Coach
situación puntual dentro del
Richard.
partido. Usted se
Carlos
nota que estaba amarillo, se
Villamaldez,
vio un poco
Sports.
exaltado
Richard,
con sus
something
palabras como
specific.
supuestamente
You got a
hermano.
yellow
Quisiera
card.
saber
You were a little
cómo
bit
lo trabajaron
upset
post
about
partido.
that, and
Profe, y
you
con
had
el
an exchange of
partido que hubo
words
en
with
Barranquilla,
Lerma. How did
los
you work
primeros
about
20
that after the
minutos
match?
casi que fueron de
And
la selección
coach, do you
brasileña.
remember the
¿Cómo
20
evitar
minutes that Brazil
tanto tiempo
controlled
que se
in
haya perdido?
Barranquilla
Después se
match?
remontó, pero
How are
¿cómo
you
evitar que los
going to
primeros 20
prevent
minutos fueran
them from
desconcentraciones? Gracias.
controlling the ball for such a
Bueno,
long
buenas
time
tardes.
and
No,
to
yo
avoid
siento
losing
que lo que
concentration over
pasó
the
ahí en
first
el
20
partido de Costa
minutes?
Rica fue momentáneo, son
I
cosas que
feel that
pasan en
what
el
happened
partido.
in the match
Me
against
refiero a
Costa
lo de la
Rica
tarjeta
was
amarilla. Sí
just
estaba un
an
poco molesto
instant. Those
porque
things
claramente
happen in a match. I'm
sentí
talking
que no
about
era
the
una
yellow
jugada
card. I was a
para
little bit
tarjeta amarilla,
upset because
pero
I
para eso hay
felt that
una
it wasn't
persona con
warranted.
un mando ahí dentro del
But
campo que toma las
for that,
decisiones y que
there's someone
hace
to make that kind
lo
of
que él cree que es
decisions
justo.
in the field,
En el momento
and it's
yo
up to
no
him
creí
to do
que
whatever
era
he
para tarjeta
feels is
amarilla, pero
reasonable.
bueno, pues al final
Back
acabó
then,
dándosela.
I didn't think that the
Y
yellow
con
card was
Jefferson no pasó nada,
warranted,
fue algo
but
como más
I
de
had to put
amistad,
up with that. And with
de
Jefferson,
proteger
nothing
al grupo,
happened.
de
It
protegernos
was
entre
more
nosotros
like
como para
protecting
evitar
the
una tarjeta
team,
amarilla.
protecting one
Ya ahí
another
no se pudo evitar,
in order
pero no
to
fue nada más.
avoid another yellow card that couldn't be avoided right then. But that's
Bueno,
all there was
con
to
Brasil
it.
no te podés distraer nunca, ni al principio, ni al
Well,
final, ni en la
with
mitad.
Brazil, you
Así
can
que
never
lo ideal
lose
es
concentration, not at
mantener
the
el
beginning,
control
not at the
en todo el
end, and
partido,
not halfway through
pero es
it.
difícil
So
también, ¿no?
our
Así que
idea is to maintain
si el
control all
resultado
throughout the
fuera el
game, but
mismo,
that's also difficult.
ojalá sea el
So
mismo
if
partido.
the
Pero bueno,
result
cada
were the
partido ya
same,
sabemos
I hope it's
que
going to be the same
propone
match.
otras
But
dificultades,
we all
otros
know that
retos
every
y bueno,
match
ojalá que mañana
poses different
podamos
challenges
controlarlo.
and different difficulties. I can only hope that tomorrow we are going to be in control of the match.
Hola, profe. Richard Valentina Peña para W Radio Colombia. Para
Hello,
el profe,
coach. Richard
me
Valentina
quedé mucho con las
Peña
palabras que dijo
for
Gustavo
Radio
Alfaro en la rueda
Colombia,
de
for the
prensa antes del
coach.
duelo contra Costa Rica.
Something
Y él
Gustavo
comparaba a
Alfaro
Brasil
said
con
at the press
Colombia y decía
conference
que
before the match
Vinicius,
against
ese
Costa
extremo,
Rica
los
stuck in my
delanteros que
mind.
tiene
He
Brasil,
compared
uno
Brazil with
puede
Colombia, and
prever
he
por
said
qué
that
parte del campo
Vinicius
pueden ir
and the
jugadores como
wingers that
James o
Brazil
Juan
had,
Campos. ¿Qué
you can
piensa usted de esta
predict where
afirmación y
they
cómo
are
compara
going to
tal vez estas
play,
delanteras
and
que tienen
players
Colombia y
like
Brasil? Y
James
para Richard le quería
actually
preguntar por
play
un
the
jugador que
whole
usted
field.
conoce
So
muy
what
bien
do you
como es
think of
Hendrik,
this
comparten
statement?
juntos en
And for
Palmeiras. De hecho,
Richard,
desde
I'm going to
Brasil se
ask you
habla la
about
posibilidad de
Hendrik
que sea
because you
titular.
play together in
¿Cómo es Hendrik
Palmeiras,
dentro
and
y
in
fuera del
Brazil they are
campo?
saying that he
Y
may
qué
be
le
a
puede aportar
starter
tal vez ese
tomorrow. So
conocimiento
how
al
is
equipo
Hendrik
sobre cómo juega.
inside and outside the pitch, and what can
Bueno,
you tell the rest of your
Hendrik,
teammates about his
ya
play?
muchos lo conocen, es un jugador
Hendrik, I
muy
believe
fuerte
that
para,
he's widely
para
known.
la
He's
edad
a
que
very
tiene. A
strong
veces es
player,
extraño la fuerza que tenga, que tiene,
and
el nivel de juego
sometimes
que puede tener, que
it's
puede
even
generarle al equipo
unnatural how strong he is
en el que esté
and
jugando.
the
Pero la
level of play
verdad
that he can
no tengo
create
la más
for
mínima
whatever
idea si
team
va a
he's
salir
playing
titular o
with.
no.
But actually,
Tal
I don't know whether he's
vez
going to be starter
eso,
tomorrow. I don't have the
eso
slightest
ellos son los que
idea,
tienen que preocuparse, pero sí tengo una muy buena amistad con él.
but it's actually up to them to worry
Y
about that.
siento
But
que
we're
el
close
equipo que
friends
él
with
está
him,
van a intentar buscarlo a
and
él
I believe
porque,
that
como acabé de decir, es un jugador
in
muy,
the
muy
team where
potente,
he
muy
is,
fuerte,
they are
que
always
puede
going
marcar
to look for
diferencia.
him because, as I just said, he's a very
Bueno, con
strong and very
respecto a
powerful
los buenos jugadores,
player that can make a
creo que
difference. In
si son
terms of good
predecibles o
soccer
predecibles,
players, well,
tienen la
if they are
característica de sorprender de
predictable,
cualquier manera. O sea, eso es lo que lo hace
they
distinto,
surprise
¿no?
you
Que sabes lo que va a
anyway.
hacer y te lo
So
hace igual.
that's what makes
Así que
them different
muy difícil, hay
because
que
you
temporizar,
know
hay
what they are
que
going
estar
to
atento,
do
hay que ser un
and
muy
they
buen
still do
defensor
it to you.
para
So it's
controlarlo,
still
¿no?
hard. We need to
Así
time them.
que
We need to
capaz que
be
lo que quiso
focused,
decir
and you
Alfaro
need to
fue
be a
eso,
very
no
good
sé.
defender if you want to stop them.
Creo que
So I
son,
guess that
mañana
might
va a
have
haber
been what
dentro del
Alfaro
campo
meant. I don't know.
muy buenos jugadores
But I believe that
para que sea
tomorrow
un lindo
in the
espectáculo.
game there are going to be top-notch players, so it's going to be a great show.
Hola, profe. ¿Qué tal? Soy Francisco de ESPN.
Hello, coach.
Richard viene muy bien en
Francisco
Palmeiras de
with
Brasil. El año
ESPN.
pasado hizo 53
Richard has
partidos.
been
Este
doing
año
great in
fue campeón
Palmeiras
brasileño. Este
in
año campeón
Brazil. He
paulista.
played
Me gustaría
53
saber
matches last
lo que
year.
ve de
He was a
Richard de
Brazilian
Palmeiras que te
champion
gusta
this
tanto y
year.
ahora
And
lo pone en la
so,
selección de
what do
Colombia.
you
Y
see
otra
of the
curiosidad
Richard in
personal.
Palmeiras that
¿Hizo
you like
alguna
so
llamada a
much?
Abel Ferreira,
And
el
now
entrenador de
you
Richard, para
have
tener
him
algún
on
consejo
your
de cómo
team.
utilizarlo o tiene
And
sus propias ideas para cómo poner
did
Richard
you
en
talk
campo?
to his
Gracias.
coach in Palmeiras to know how
Sí,
to use
no,
them,
no
or
tuve
you
la
have your own
oportunidad de hablar
ideas of how to
con
use them?
Ferreira,
So I
simplemente
haven't had the
por lo que empecé
opportunity
a
of
ver de
talking to
Richard,
Ferreira,
incluso
his
cuando no
coach
era
at
titular,
Palmeiras.
ya lo estábamos
I
siguiendo.
just let
Tiene una
myself be
característica, el
guided
otro día
by
lo
what
dije
he's been
también,
doing. We were
de
following
pronto,
him before he was a starter, and he has a
de
distinctive
pronto
feature
tiene,
that I already
el otro
mentioned the
día
other
dije
day,
que Richard todavía
but
no tocó el techo, ¿no? Creo que tiene mucho por crecer,
said
por
the other
aprender y
day
por
that he has
mejorar
not
para darle
reached
al
his
equipo
full potential.
mucho
He
más.
still has a lot to
Creo que
learn
va a ser
and
un
still
jugador
to work
de elite
a lot
eh,
before
si
he
sigue
becomes the elite player he's
en
meant
este
to be
camino. Y bueno, al equipo
if he
le da un
continues
poco de
along
todo,
this
¿no?
path.
Bien con la pelota,
And
marca,
well, I think he
ruptura hacia
gives many things
adelante,
to a team because
buen juego
he carries
aéreo, o
the
sea,
ball, he
buen remate de media
marks,
distancia. Es un jugador
he has good
que puede ser muy útil
aerial
para un
play,
equipo y por eso
also
está donde
mid-range
está.
shots. So he's a very useful player for any team, and that's why he is where he is.
Profe Richard, Liche Durán para ESPN Colombia.
Coach
Para
Richard
Richard,
Licha
algo que he
Duran for
visto
ESPN Colombia. For Richard,
tuve la
something
posibilidad
I've
de acompañarlo
noticed
desde Connecticut. El
since I had the
acompañamiento de la gente
possibility
ha
of
sido impresionante para la
supporting you
selección
in
Colombia.
Connecticut.
Pero usted se toma el tiempo de
The
esperar,
support of
de
your
firmar
fan base has
camisetas,
been
de
incredible for
tomarse
the
una
Colombia's
foto.
national
Y
team,
sé que
but you
llegan del
take the
entrenamiento
time to wait
cansados
for
y
them
bueno, tienen
to
muchas
sign their
actividades y están
jerseys,
concentrados.
jerseys to get
Pero
a
es eso,
picture taken.
usted
I know you're
es muy
tired
cercano a
from
la gente.
training, you
¿Por
are
qué lo hace? Y
concentrated,
para el
but
profe,
you still
profe, Lucumí,
get
¿cómo
close to the
está?
people.
¿Va a poder seguir
And for the
contando con él
coach,
lo que resta de Copa
how's
América para la
Lukumi
selección Colombia?
doing? Do you
Gracias.
think that he's going to
Bueno,
be available to the national
referente
team for the rest of
a
the
lo de los hinchas
tournament?
ya, porque hago eso, siento que
In terms of our
soy una
fan
persona
base,
que
I
viene,
do that
como muchos de mis compañeros,
because
vienen de un nivel de vida, de una calidad de vida
me,
un
as
poco
well as
baja cuando
many
éramos
of my
jóvenes.
teammates,
Pasé
come
mucho por
from
eso, por
low
estar ahí
income
hasta
sectors
cierta
of
edad
the society.
de la que tengo
So
ahorita, de
I
estar ahí
recognize
como viendo a
myself
mis ídolos,
in those
como
people, even when
apoyándolos
I
o gritando
was
que vengan a la firma
the age they are
y
like
algún día
supporting,
llegaron a
rooting for my
firmarme una foto
idols.
y sé lo feliz que me
And
hizo eso,
I got a
entonces
picture
sé lo feliz que puede
signed
hacer eso a una
once,
persona.
and I know how
También quiero
happy
decir
that made me. So I
que a
know
veces
how
no
happy
mis
I can make
compañeros
someone with a
o el
signature, with an
cuerpo
autograph.
técnico, nosotros no lo hacemos
But I know that
algunas veces no es
sometimes
porque no
my
queramos, sino porque a
teammates
veces
or the
tenemos una
coach
agenda
do
un
not
poco
do it, not
complicada,
because we don't
entrenos,
want to,
hay que
but
cumplir
sometimes
horarios,
our agenda
pero
is quite tight, and we have lots of responsibilities, but everyone wants to be there, and we really feel the support and the love of everyone that is rooting for us at the stadium, at the hotel. But it's impossible for us to sign like 5,000,
no, pasar ese mensaje,
30,000
decirles que
jerseys.
todos sentimos ese apoyo, que la
So
verdad
I wanted to pass
nos
that
hace muy
message
feliz
along. We all
a donde
feel their
vayamos, tenemos
support,
gente.
and it makes us
Para
extremely
responder
happy that we
terminar de
have
responder la pregunta,
supporters
es más por eso,
everywhere we go.
porque me siento
And
mucho de la
to
gente
wrap up the
y
answer
eso me
to
hace
that
feliz.
question, it's just because
Y
I
bueno,
feel their support, and that
Lucumí
makes
está
me happy.
evolucionando muy bien y lo vamos siguiendo día a día
Lukumi is
prácticamente y
progressing
para el partido de
well.
mañana no va a estar.
We
Vamos a ver
are
para el
monitoring him
próximo.
on a
Ahí
daily
vamos así
basis. He's
con
not
él.
going to be up to the game tomorrow. We'll see what happens for the next one.
Buenas tardes. Jaime Dinas de Telepacífico y
Good afternoon.
101.9
Jaime
Candela en
Dinas for
Bogotá.
Telepacífico and
Ponderando
101.9
como siempre
Candela
lo
in
hacemos su
Bogotá.
trabajo, también lo extendemos
Coach,
a sus colegas, a
considering
sus
your work as we always
compañeros de grupo
do,
de trabajo. Te
we
quiero preguntar puntualmente
always
porque tú eres un hombre de muchos detalles. Para los
congratulate
partidos que
your
jugó
whole
Brasil
team.
aquí
You pay a lot of attention to
ante
details.
Costa Rica
So,
y ante
the
Paraguay,
matches that
¿te
Brazil has
circunscribiste
played
a los
here
análisis de
against Costa
video
Rica
o
and against
enviaste a
Paraguay,
alguno de tus colaboradores
did you just
al
analyze the
partido para que
videos,
observara en
or
la
did you
tribuna
send
los
any of your
movimientos? ¿Qué
assistants to watch the
conclusiones
match
sacaste de
so
este
that
análisis
they can
previos de
actually
Brasil?
look at their
Y a Richard,
movements
con
in
las
the
muy
field,
buenas
and what
tardes, una
conclusions
pregunta a
have you
mano, Richard, te
drawn
quiero
from
preguntar.
this previous
Colombia le
analysis
marcó
of
5
Brazil?
goles a dos
And
equipos
Richard,
que
good
se encerraron
afternoon to
mucho.
you.
Las características de Brasil, un
Colombia
equipo más
scored
abierto,
5 goals
puede
against
garantizar un buen
teams that
espectáculo y que
were
Colombia
parked in the past.
mantenga ese buen ritmo
Brazil
de
is
marcar
a much
goles.
more
Nuestros mejores
open
deseos para ambos.
team. So do you think you can still
Yo
score
siento que eso
against him?
no
Best
nos va a
wishes to
garantir que
both of
vamos
you.
a hacer un partido
I
perfecto, que
feel
vamos a salir
that
con la
we have
victoria.
no guarantee that we're going to play a
Pero lo que
perfect
siento
match
es
or that we're going to win
que
the game.
sí le va a
But
dar a toda la gente
I
felicidad
still
de ver
think
un partido como lo es
that we are going to
Brasil-Colombia.
be able to
Respecto
give the
a los
people
partidos
joy
anteriores,
with
todos los
this
partidos son
match between
diferentes.
Brazil and Colombia.
Tal
As for
vez,
the previous matches,
como
every
dijiste, los
game is
equipos salieron un
different.
poco más cerrados atrás
And
y
as
hicimos
you
5
well
goles,
said,
pero
some
todos
of
los
these
partidos son muy
teams
diferentes.
may have pulled back a little
Por
bit
lo que
more. We
hemos
scored
visto de
five
Brasil,
goals,
conocemos diferente
but
los
every
rivales que
match
hemos
is
enfrentado.
different. And from what
Pero
we've
como lo
seen
dije, eso
from
no nos va a dar
Brazil, they play
garantía de que
very
vamos a hacer
differently
un
from the
buen
opponents
partido,
we've had so far, but that's no guarantee that
pero
we're
sí que
going to
vamos
play
a
a good
salir
match.
a dar lo mejor de nosotros.
But
Sí,
we're
con
going to
respecto al
give
seguimiento,
100%.
bueno, lo venimos siguiendo desde que salió
And in
el
terms
sorteo, ¿no?
of
A Brasil,
follow-up,
incluso en
we've
el
been
último amistoso
monitoring
con
them
Estados
ever
Unidos, aquí
since the
mismo fue
toss.
gente del cuerpo técnico.
Even in the friendly
En
against
estos
the
dos
United
partidos de
States,
Copa no,
some
lo seguimos
members
más
of the
por televisión y por video,
technical team
porque teníamos
attended,
mucho trabajo
not
interno
on
también
these
dentro
two
de la selección,
tournament games. We
pero
followed
bueno,
them on TV and by video because we had a lot of
conocemos
work to
más
do
o
with
menos
our own
cómo se
team,
maneja, cómo ha cambiado
but we are
la
pretty
idea de
familiar with the
juego y
way they
todo,
work
y estamos
and
trabajando en
how
eso.
they've changed their game plan and everything, and we're working on it.
Buenas tardes a todos los presentes. Buenas tardes, profesor Néstor. Para
Good
Richard,
afternoon,
saludos
everyone.
Octavio
Good
Mora Gómez
afternoon,
de
Coach
RCN
Nestor,
Radio, Proyecto Fútbol
Richard,
Visitante,
or Octavio Mora
Diario La
Gómez
Patria
for
y Octavio Mora Deportes
RCN
Canal.
Radio, Proyecto Fútbol
Profesor
Visitante,
Néstor,
Diario La Patria, and
es muy
Octavio Mora's
importante el
canal.
objetivo de mantener el primer lugar
Nestor,
del grupo, pero también es
the
supremamente importante
objective
el llegar
of
con un equipo en
maintaining
óptimas
our first
condiciones
place
y
in the group
completo
is
y entero
extremely
para el
important,
partido
but
de
it's also
cuartos.
important
Si
to get
tocara
with a
elegir en un
team that
momento
is
dado
whole and in
qué es
perfect
prioridad
conditions for the quarterfinals.
para
So,
reservar algunos
if push comes
jugadores
to
que por
shove
ejemplo
and you
tienen
need
tarjeta amarilla
to
como Lerma, jugador
prioritize
que en el medio
whether to
campo tiene
preserve some
peligro de
soccer
choque,
such as
¿qué
Lerma,
pesaría más?
which
¿Qué tanto
has
el
a
invicto
risk
le
of
pesa
getting into a yellow
a esta
card in the
altura? Y
midfield?
si es
Um,
prioridad o
what is
importante
the
mantenerlo
bearing
frente a
of your
Brasil, un equipo
streak
que va a
by
ser el
now,
mejor
or
examinador
is it
de Colombia.
important to maintain him
Y
playing against
para Richard,
Brazil?
¿qué
That is going to put
atributos y
Colombia
qué
to a
virtudes
test.
le da el
And for
haber
Richard,
disputado partidos de fútbol
what
sala en
are
sus
the
comienzos? ¿Eso le
virtues
agregó algo,
and the
alguna perspicacia,
lessons
algún
learned
dominio,
from the
algo
futsal
especial
that you
que
played at
le
the
haga
early
agregar
stages
esa
of your
milla extra?
career? Has that
Bueno,
given
yo siento
you some
que
extra
es muy
skills that
visible
you can use now?
lo que yo hago en campo,
Well, I feel that
lo que me dio el fútbol
what
sala,
I
que
do in the
es
pitch
estar
is
pisando la
extremely
pelota, algo tan
visible
simple
in
como es
terms
un
of what
dominio. A
futsal
veces
has given me, that
no lo
stepping on the
domino
ball and
con mi
control the
interno,
ball.
sino que con la planta. Y eso es algo que
Sometimes
vengo
I don't
desde
use
que lo
the
tengo desde el
inner
fútbol
side,
sala,
but the
desde mis
sole of my
inicios.
feet, and this is something that I've
Y me
had
ayuda
ever
bastante
since I
en el
started
campo
playing futsal.
a
And
nivelarme
it's been
más
extremely
ante los
helpful in the
rivales,
pitch
a pensar mucho
because
más
it
rápido
has
en
led me to
campos
lose my mark a little
o
bit
en momentos que me sienta
faster,
más
to
presionado en espacios muy reducidos.
think
Eso me ayuda
quicker,
bastante.
or when I'm under
Entonces,
pressure
a
or in
eso
reduced
tengo mucho que
spaces.
agradecerle
I
al
think it's
futsal.
extremely helpful, and I have a lot to
Sí, con
thank
respecto
futsal for that.
a los amonestados,
As for
la prioridad es
the
salir
yellow
primero
cards,
en el grupo, ¿no? La prioridad es esa.
the
Más allá de
priority
estar
is to be
clasificado,
first
queremos
in
terminar
our group.
en primer
That is
lugar.
our priority.
Y,
Regardless of
y
having
bueno,
qualified for the
nosotros cuando
quarterfinals,
decimos
we want to be ranked
que es muy fina
first.
la línea entre un jugador
And
y
when we
otro,
say that there's a
si
very
cuidamos a uno
fine line
porque está
between
amonestado, estamos
one
como
player and the
diciendo,
other,
¿no?
if
O
we
sea, el
preserve
equipo
one
va a
only
salir
because they've received
a
a
jugar
yellow
el
card,
partido
it's
de
like
la
we
mejor
are
manera
denying what we've said
y
earlier.
los que
The team is
estén
going to come out
esperando la
with the best
oportunidad
possible lineup, and
tendrán que
everyone
demostrar
waiting
cuando le
for a
toque, ¿no? Más allá
chance will have
de que sea
to
por
prove
amonestación o
their
sea por
worth
decisión.
when
Así que
their time
la
comes
idea
up,
es
whether it's because of a sanction
saber
or because
jugar
of our decision. So
con las situaciones
we
estas,
need
¿no?
to be
Que se
able
dan.
to adjust to our situations.
Profe Richard, Cristian Marín de Blue Radio, Gol Caracol.
Coach Richard, Cristian
Para
Marin
el profe,
for
profe, yo le
Blue
quiero
Radio
preguntar,
Gol
estamos
Caracol.
desde el día cero con
For
la
the
selección
coach,
Colombia, los partidos
Coach,
amistosos
I would
de
like to
Copa.
ask you, ever
Digamos que
since
Colombia
we
se ha
started,
caracterizado
we've
porque
been
en los
following
cuatro
the Colombian
partidos, pues
national
es claro, ¿no?
team
Y es
through the
evidente, ha
friendlies, the
tenido un
two
dominio
matches in
absoluto en los
the
juegos,
tournament,
ha tenido
and
capacidad
it's clear
goleadora.
that Colombia
Por ahí
had
no ha sufrido
absolute
tanto
control
los
of the game
partidos.
throughout the four
Obviamente el rival es de
matches
otra
and has
característica, de
had
otra
scoring
estirpe. Le
capacity. It
quería
has not
preguntar, profe, si
suffered
Colombia
throughout the
está preparado
games.
en situaciones de
Of
juego, porque
course,
usted ya
this
lo
is a
decía,
different
seguramente no van a
opponent.
cambiar la línea,
So
están preparados
Colombia,
para sufrir.
we would like
Le
to
quería
ask you,
preguntar
are
sobre
you
eso. Y a Richard,
prepared to
Richard, ¿qué
suffer
pasa por la
in this
cabeza?
game? This is what I want to ask you.
Mañana
And
enfrenta a
Richard,
Brasil, partido
what's going through your
importante,
head?
está amonestado, está un poco
Tomorrow you are up
condicionado, no sé
against
si eso le genera un
Brazil,
poco de
a
ansiedad,
very
el
important
pensar que usted
game.
juega en una
You
posición
have
donde a
received
veces
a
la
yellow
presión y el
card.
roce
Are
es
you
necesario,
anxious about that?
y
Because you play a
si de alguna u otra
position
manera
where
es un
sometimes
condicionante para
you
estar en campo.
need
Muchas
to
gracias.
have some contact with the
Bueno,
opponents. Do you think it will condition
comencemos por
you?
la tarjeta. Siento que sí es algo que puede
As I
condicionar a un
said
jugador,
earlier,
claramente, porque
I believe that a yellow
ya tengo
card
una tarjeta,
conditions a soccer
entonces
player
pues podría perderme el próximo partido,
because I've
pero
already
no me
received a
genera
yellow
algún tipo de
card,
ansiedad
so
o
I
algo,
could miss the next
porque
match.
siento
But I'm not anxious
que
about
eso
that
pasa en nuestros clubes o en las selecciones, en torneos así,
because
pasa
that
de estar
happens in every
condicionado
club,
y hay que
in
saber
every
jugar
national
con
team, in tournaments
una
like
tarjeta
this.
amarilla
And
o
these
con que
things
no te
happen, and
saquen
you need to
otra.
know how to play when you've received a
Entonces,
yellow
como yo
card
lo dije
before so that you don't get
anteriormente,
another
va a
one.
haber una persona
As
que
I said
tiene el poder
earlier,
dentro del campo.
there's going to
Entonces,
be a person that has
hacer las
all the
cosas
power
bien
inside the pitch.
llevar el juego de la mejor
So we
manera.
need to do
Y
things right,
bueno, pues
and we
que
need to
las
play
decisiones del que está ahí sean
at
las
our
mejores.
best possible level, and
Sí,
let the referee make the best possible
tener el
decisions as
control
well.
siempre, ya te digo, es muy difícil, ¿no? Seguramente
Okay,
que
maintaining controls
nos
at
ha
all
pasado
times, as I said
en algunos
earlier, is
partidos
extremely hard.
que hemos perdido el
It's
control
happened to us
no te diría
during certain
sufrir,
matches that we lost
pero que no la
control,
pasamos tan bien
and I wouldn't say
y el equipo
suffer,
estuvo a la
but
altura.
we
Así
didn't have
que
such a good
queremos
time, I'd
seguir
say, but
madurando.
the
Seguramente
team was still up to
me
that.
imagino un partido
So we want to
de
continue
pelotearlo a Brasil
growing.
90 minutos,
I'm picturing a
más allá de que
game
nos
where we are
encantaría,
not going to
pero sé
be
que en
shooting
algún
at
momento
Brazilians
estar
arc
en un bloque
over
más
the 90
bajo
minutes. But
y soportar el partido,
although I'd love
aguantarlo,
to,
esperando la
I know that at
oportunidad
some
y
point
bueno,
during the match
es
we're
parte del
not
crecimiento
going to be
del
playing at
equipo.
our best,
Así
but
que
we're going to hold
tenemos que
on
estar
through
preparados para
it,
eso.
waiting for our opportunity, and
Vamos a
that's
hacer
part
aquí la
of
última
our
pregunta,
team's
por favor.
journey. We need to be ready for that as well. Let's have our last question, please.
Muchas gracias. Muchas gracias, buenas tardes. Hugo
Thank you
Luis
so
Urruchuto de
much.
Olímpica Estéreo. Y
Thank you
programa
so
Punto
much,
Pena de
Hugo
Telecaribe.
Luis Ruchurro, Olímpica Estéreo,
A
and
Richard
Programa
preguntarle
Punto
si
Pega,
hoy
Telecaribe.
es un clásico personal
For
o un
Richard,
sentimientos
my question
encontrados. Hoy
is,
estamos
whether this is a personal challenge or you have mixed feelings, because today we heard Brazilian people speaking highly of you, that this is something that you love as a Colombian. The way Brazilian fan base speaks of you is interesting. So you have mixed feelings about that. And for the coach, everyone is asking about or rumoring about avoiding Uruguay. There are no small rivals here. There are no small opponents. You said in the last press conference because you don't know what team is going to play stronger, and no team is to be underestimated. But I would like your opinion about that, about the other teams wanting to avoid Uruguay. I'm extremely happy because, as I said, it's a country that gave me the warmest welcome, and that also speaks well of me. And other Colombians that have been to Brazil or that are still in Brazil, they open a lot of doors for those coming after us. And this is actually the legacy we're trying to create, like to leave a good human footprint, because this is what we're going to be remembered by. And this is also what we remember when it comes to these kind of instances. I'm not taking it personally, as I said. I don't take the competition personally, but this is something that I've always dreamed of, and that's something I do take personally. I would like to thank the Brazilian people, the country that opened the doors to me ever since I was very young. But the team, the match, I'm not taking it personally. In terms of avoiding one opponent or the other, well, we are playing against Uruguay's group. We may come across them sooner or later, but it's going to be hard to avoid them if they keep on moving forward. But we're not thinking about that. We're just thinking that if we want to make it, there's Brazil in our way, Uruguay, Argentina, Ecuador, whoever qualifies next. So we're taking it game by game, and looking any forward, it's like underestimating tomorrow's opponent, and I'm not going to do that. I believe that Brazil deserves 100% of our attention, and our idea is to compete against these top-rated
Gracias, Néstor.
teams.
Gracias, Richard.
It's a
Muchas
great
gracias a todos. Buenas
satisfaction to be
tardes.
able to play against them. Thank you, Nestor. Thank you,
Muchas
Richard.
gracias.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, everyone.